Thanks for joining me on another episode of Why Not Go, the channel dedicated to rock and roll, especially punk rock and the Sex Pistols. I'm Maggie, and I appreciate everyone watching the videos and liking them and commenting. I love the comments. Well, this week there was more news with the Sex Pistols. It's funny, I got a comment from one of my subscribers saying, oh, I wonder if they're going to do more shows. And that was Wednesday, and on just barely 24 hours later, on Thursday, it was posted on Steve Jones' Facebook and also on Glenn Matlock's and probably other places too. I'll show Steve Jones' posting here. And they've added more shows, and my subscriber wanted to know if they were doing shows in Scotland, and they are. These are probably bigger venues than Bush Hall, so I guess I'm sure they'll sell out right away, but it sounds like they're bigger venues, so maybe it will be a little bit easier to get tickets. I think tickets went on sale yesterday, on Friday, and so hopefully there's still some tickets available. I know Kentish Town at the Forum is sold out, but they've added Nottingham Rock City on September 20th and Saturday, September 21st, Birmingham, the O2 Academy, Sunday, the 22nd of September, Glasgow O2 Academy, Tuesday, September 24th, the Manchester Academy, and then the sold-out show in London, Thursday the 26th. So they're doing 5 shows in September. So that's exciting, and I love what Steve Jones posted on his Facebook. He said, "You demanded it, so we commanded it. Be careful what you wish for. I am over the moon." So that's neat. He says he's over the moon about playing more shows with Frank Carter and obviously Steve and Paul, and with Paul and Glenn beside him. So I watched a few clips. I think Frank Carter does a good job, as most people probably agree. He's not John Lydon, of course, but I think that if they wanted a singer, I think that they made a good choice with him. Well, this is my part 2 of the my Soho tour, punk rock Soho tour of London. I start off at the Marquee, which on Wardour Street, at 90 Wardour Street, where the Sex Pistols played February 12th, 1976, and it was a very kind of pivotal gig for them, and I go into great detail about it. It was only their 9th gig, and they still weren't even billed. It just said support. They supported Eddie and the Hot Rods, but it was a gig where they started to get known, so it was very important. So I hope you like the tour. I visit a few other places, and then Joe and I end the tour where we're in Carnaby Street looking for the location of one of their best photos, a Ray Stevenson photo, and we found the exact location of it. I believe this photo was in April of 1976. So thanks as always for watching. I hope you enjoy this one. All right, thanks for joining me on another episode of Why Not Go. Well, we're in Soho at 90 Wardour Street. Most people probably know what that is. It's the Marquee. And the Marquee actually started in 1958 on Oxford Street, and it came here in 1964 at this location. I never went to the one on Oxford Street, but I came to this one several times at 90 Wardour Street, and it was here from 1964 to 1988. And then after that, it moved to Charing Cross Road. I also went to that one. It was there till 1996. So anyway, so this is Wardour Street. Joe is just going to pan the street here so we can see. It's still bustling. It's still a great place. The ship is still down the street. I love Soho. It's still busy and bustling as always. So this is really important in Sex Pistols history. Also in David Bowie history. David Bowie performed here in 1964, which is really early on. I don't know if he was David Bowie and the Manish Boys or David Bowie in the Lower Third. I'm not sure exactly what he was doing in 1964, but he performed here. And then in I believe it was 74, he did the 1980 floor show with Marianne Faithfull. I love that concert. That was filmed here. And he was just so great. He was still in the Ziggy Stardust look. So, Sex Pistol history. They performed here in 1976. I'm not sure what date, but I believe it was only once. And they also, in early '77, they shot the God Save the Queen. I love that video. They shot the God Save the Queen video here at the Marquee. Sadly, the Marquee, as I said, moved from this location in 1988. I don't know what's going on there now. Oh, it's called Soho Lofts. Gosh, just like so many places, it's loft apartments that probably rent for astronomical sums. So I love the photo of, yeah, you can pan up, Joe. I love the photo that I'm just going to draw up. Yeah, Manhattan Loft. It's probably like a Manhattan company. Oh, God. And there's a Keith Moon plaque there. Performed here at the site of the Marquee. Oh, God, I can't read that. I think in 1964 it says. But anyway, Bowie performed there in '64. But back to the Sex Pistols, because I always have to get back to them. I love this photo. I'll put it in the video if I can. But this is them standing outside the Marquee in 1976. Probably before the show. Glenn is on the right, of course. He's leaning up against the tile. Johnny is looking so fantastic. And Steve and Paul in the middle. So, and yeah, we see the tile there. Let's zoom in on the tile.
No, exactly. That's fine. That's fine either way.
This is the same tile. So certain things don't change. This is the same tile that Glenn.
Yeah, it's more like reserving it.
This is the same tile that Glenn was leaning up on. I love that.
Shoulder would have been.
Yeah, his shoulder. I'll move it to the left a little bit. His shoulder would have been right about, yeah, right about here.
Would have been in this area.
Paul was here. Steve, and then Johnny would have been right about here.
Looks like they're
where the Soho Lofts are. Yeah, Johnny would have been right about here.
Sorry.
At the Soho Lofts. Oh, and someone's going into the Soho Lofts. Maybe we can get a glimpse. Oh, it's stairs. Okay. If anyone has been to the Marquee, you remember that it was a long hallway. It's funny, it's stairs when you go up. It was a long hallway, and then the club was in the back. One of the most, and maybe I'll do a video on it later, one of the most, I didn't see the Sex Pistols here, but one of the most, or David Bowie, but one of the most legendary shows in my life was the first time I saw Joy Division. I think it was 1978, and it was here at the Marquee. The Marquee had so many like amazing shows over the years. Not to mention the Who. I'm not sure, probably the Rolling Stones. Just basically everybody played here. I love the Marquee. This was, to me, I'm sure for a lot of Londoners, this was a sad loss when it closed. So I'm just going to let Joe pan out, and then I'm going to stand. He's going to go over there, and I'm going to pose like Glenn poses.
Hold it.
Just kind of here, like there. And you can get the. Glenn would have been right here, and the rest of them would have been right here. At least the tile's the same.
Oh, you can go, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Glenn was here. And then, well, you keep going. Oh, we're filming, no worries. Glenn would have been here, and the rest of the band would be here. I love it. I love doing location shots. So yes, the Marquee is now the Soho Lofts. I don't know, it's just one of those things, but I'm sure a lot of Londoners have a lot of great memories, like I do, of seeing bands here. I saw bands here in the 70s and 80s. So another Sex Pistols location. Their concert in 1976 and the God Save the Queen video shot here. Love it. So thanks again for joining me. Until the next time. Okay, so here's an ad for the Marquee, and you can see up on the left-hand side, top left, that's February 12th. It was a Thursday night, and this was the Sex Pistols' first and only gig at the Marquee, and you can see they're not even listed. It says Eddie and the Hot Rods. They were supporting Eddie and the Hot Rods. It was 60p to get in, a little bit lower than some of the other nights, which were 70p, and they are not listed. They're just listed as support. It says support and Ian Fleming. So, and you can see there in the ad, there's Dana Gillespie. She was part of, I believe, David Bowie's entourage, and Kilburn and the High Roads there later on, a few days later, and that, of course, was Ian Dury's first band. I believe he started Kilburn and the High Roads in 1970. So they were just starting off when they played here. Again, it was February 12th, 1976. And they hadn't been playing long, of course, because they'd only started at St. Martin's School of Art in November of the previous year. So this was their 9th ever live gig. So they hadn't been playing long. Apparently there was only a crowd of about 20 in the audience who were fans of theirs, but this audience was included some very interesting people. Included Mick Jones of The Clash, Tony James, obviously of Generation X, and Steve Severin of obviously Susie and the Banshees. And by this time they had already played in Chislehurst, and it was at that concert, that show, that Simon Barker saw them, and the Bromley contingent were starting to form. So Susie herself could have been at this show, and other members of the Bromley contingent as well. But they just had a very small following, and this is the set that they played. They played 11 songs, but only 5 of them were original. So at this point in their career, they were just starting to sort of integrate original songs with covers. So it was sort of half and half. So this was their set list. Did You Know Wrong? Then Don't Give Me No Lip, Child. That's a cover. They did Understanding by the Small Faces, another cover. And then they did 17, which obviously is an original, and New York, an original song. That was a very early song that they wrote, New York. That's one of my favorites. Then they did a cover, Stepping Stone. Then they went into Submission, an original. Then they did What You Gonna Do About It, a Small Faces song. And then their night song of the evening was Pretty Vacant. And they ended the show with No Fun, obviously a cover by the Stooges. And they did an encore, which was The Who's Substitute. So only 5 original songs, and but they did 11 songs, so 6 covers. As I said, they were kind of starting to integrate original songs more and more into their set as they went on. And this is a small blurb in the Evening Standard that came out a couple days later after this show. And you can see it says, New London group, the Sex Pistols, startling the audience at the Marquee Club with semi-nude girls and tunes like Pretty Vacant. So they didn't get much press, but they got a little blurb in the Evening Standard. Apparently Jordan and another girl got on stage during the set and started sort of taking off their clothes. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they said that they were sort of stripping off a little bit, and that got them this little blurb in the Evening Standard. And I was a teenage Sex Pistol. He writes about this gig in his book, and I'll read a passage here. We played the Marquee for the first and only time supporting Eddie and the Hot Rods. We were dreadful, but arrogant about it. It was the first time we'd had proper monitors on stage, which meant it was the first time John heard his own voice. And he didn't like what he heard, so he trashed the monitors. Apparently, because Johnny trashed the monitors, they were banned from playing the Marquee ever again. And Glenn goes on to write, it was a terrible gig, but our first review by Neil Spencer in the New Musical Express came out. Beneath the headline, Don't Look Over Your Shoulder, but the Sex Pistols are coming. You can't play, a French tourist at front shouted. So what, I shouted back. Later Spencer chatted to us asking about music. We're not into music, we told him. What are you into then, he asked. Chaos, we said. And apparently that was Steve Jones who said we're into chaos. And that was also part of the Hulu special. They highlighted that in the special, that he said that he was into chaos. So here is that review. Again, this was the first ever write-up that they received, and it was from this gig at the Marquee by Neil Spencer of the NME. And I love the headline, Don't Look Over Your Shoulder, but the Sex Pistols are coming. You can zoom in on it and read it, but it's an interesting review. To me, he doesn't really commit to liking them. He kind of thinks sort of that they're interesting. That's what I got from it. But he kind of regards it as a spectacle. And I love the beginning of the review where he says, hurry up, they're having an orgy on stage, said the bloke on the door as he tore the tickets up. I waded to the front and straightaway sighted a chair arching gracefully through the air, skidding across the stage and thudding contentedly into the PA system to the obvious nonchalance of the bass, drums, and guitar. So I guess he walked in and the person at the door said, hey, there's an orgy going on, and he walked in and there was chairs being thrown around. So it was quite a frenzy. And I love also at the end when he says, no one asked for an encore, but they did one anyway. I love that. We're going to play substitute. And then the French punter says, you can't play. And then that's Glenn saying, so what? And then he goes on to say, that's how it is with the Sex Pistols, a musical experience with the emphasis on experience. Actually, we're not into music, one of the Pistols confided afterwards. What then? We're into chaos. So this was their first write-up, and it all happened because of their show here at the Marquee on Wardour Street. So very historical event and gig. As I said, their 9th only live performance, so they were just getting going at this point, just starting to get a small crowd that were following them. So next I'm going to show a brief clip of where the Marquee moved to after they moved from Wardour Street. All right, we're on Charing Cross Road, and the Montague Pike was where the Marquee was. It moved there in 1988 and then closed in 1996. So the Marquee went from Oxford Street to Wardour Street to here. I went to this Marquee several times. I saw Johnny Thunders there. A bunch of bands, metal bands, Zodiac Mindwarp. So much musical history. Yeah. I recognize the doors when we walk by. You can tell at the kind of double doors that it was a club.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old Marquee on Charing Cross. Now I've moved up Wardour Street a bit. Well, we're almost at Oxford Street here. We're at 203 Wardour Street, and when you see the light blue storefront there on the left, it's now a bar called Simmons. Well, this was the former location for the Vortex. Now, the Vortex started July 4th, 1977, and it went on until April of 1978, so a little bit less than a year, but it was a very popular place. And apparently it was a club called Crackers. It was a disco, and I'll show a picture here. And the disco Crackers allowed punk nights starting every Monday. This was in July of 1977, and apparently this was downstairs. There was a downstairs area where they had the live bands, and the capacity was apparently 600 people, so it was pretty big. And this club was also managed or booked by Andy Tchaikovsky. Now, apparently he had trouble over at the Roxy, and I guess the owners didn't like what he was booking there, and he had to leave, and so he wanted to do another club, and so he landed here at 203 Wardour Street. And it started, as I said, July 4th, 1977. And on that first night, on July 4th, they had the Buzzcocks, Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, and The Fall and John Cooper Clarke, all on one night. Isn't that amazing? And then the next Monday, because they only did the shows once a week on Monday nights, the next Monday on July 11th, they had Susie and the Banshees, the Slits, and Adam and the Ants. And I'll show some pictures here of Susie. I think she played there 2 or 3 times, but I think these photos are from July. There are also Ray Stevenson photos. And by the way, Ray Stevenson, who did the photo of the Sex Pistols outside of the Marquee, he was Niels Stevenson's brother, and Nils was someone who was an early Sex Pistols fan and also worked with Malcolm, and then he became the manager of Susie and the Banshees. And I love these pictures of Susie. She looks so great during this era. So they had so many bands play here. The Slits, Slaughter and the Dogs, Chelsea, the Rich Kids, Steel Pulse, Penetration, Wayne County. Susie played here again in November 5th, 1977. I'm just looking at all the shows that were here. It really is amazing. They had Sham 69 played here in 77. Johnny Moped. Susie played here again in, it looks like, October of 77. The Rosillos, Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, Eater, and the Police played here. They played here a couple times. I believe that was in late 77 or early 78. Oh, it was early 78. The Police played here a couple times. Isn't that amazing? So many punk bands played here. As I said, the Rosillos, Johnny Moped. I mean, it just goes on and on. The Adverts, the Models. As I said, Eater, Penetration. It was a very, very popular club. And yes, and the Rich Kids played here. And then on that note, in Glenn Matlock's book, he has a funny story about the Vortex. Mick Ronson ended up producing their album, and one night he and Mick Ronson decided to go to the Vortex, I guess to to hang out. And so I'll just read a passage from his book. It's quite funny. He says, "One night I went along to the Vortex Club with him, and we hung out for the evening surrounded by gobsmacked punk kids. As we left, the doorman, who was a man named John Miller, the doorman said, John Miller, he was not letting a hippie-type couple at the front of the queue. He says he was haranguing him. 'I don't care who you are,' the doorman said. 'You're not getting in.' As we edged past the scene, both Mick and I laughed when we realized the hippie couple was none other than Cher and Greg Allman, desperate to get in to see what all this punk rock business was all about." That's amazing. So Cher and Greg Allman tried to get into the Vortex. That was probably sometime around late 77, and when Glenn Matlock was working with Mick Ronson on his Rich Kids album, but the doorman didn't let them in. So that's kind of a funny story. So yes, the Vortex, it didn't last long, but it kind of shows you, it had so many great bands that played there, but it shows you how there wasn't that many places for punks to play. I read somewhere that one of the bookers for the club, I think it was Dave Wood, said that bands would call them up and they'd have their own PA, and they were just desperate to play there, and they offered to play there for free. So many bands wanted to play here, and it was a very, very popular place. But only, as I said, at first it was Monday nights, and then as it got going, it was Mondays and Tuesday nights at this disco called Crackers. So the Sex Pistols never played here, but it was an important club in punk rock history, especially in the central London area, because the Vortex really kind of took over once the Roxy was no longer, I guess they weren't booking punk bands anymore by the late 70s or by the mid-70s. By the summer of 77, they weren't booking punk bands anymore, and the Vortex was one of the only places where a punk band could play. So, and the Vortex is also known for being mentioned in a song by The Jam called "A Bomb in Wardour Street," and I'll just read a passage in the song where he mentions the Vortex. "I'm stranded on the Vortex floor, my head's been kicked in and blood started to pour. Through the haze I can see my girl, 15 geezers got her pinned to the door. I try to reach her but fall back to the floor. A bomb in Wardour Street, it's blown up the West End, now it's spreading through the city." I don't think the Jam ever played at the Vortex. I couldn't find that on the internet, but it sounds like he went there and didn't have a good time. And I'll just read a quote here from Paul Weller where he talks about that song and mentioning the Vortex. "It was a very violent time. Every gig there was a fight. I mentioned the Vortex in that song because that club had a particularly horrible, heavy atmosphere. In my mind, I thought punk was about bringing the kids together. I thought it was about uniting everybody, and that it was our time for revolution, not necessarily politically, but culturally as a generation." And then he goes on to say, but it all got so effing wrong. It wasn't about cheap speed and pints of cider. I thought punk was supposed to take us out of all that bollocks and lead us somewhere. So that song came from my disappointment with it all, whereas I thought the Jam took good aspects of punk and used it positively for what we wanted to do. So it sounds like Paul Weller went to the Vortex, didn't have a good time, and it sounds like he thought that the punk scene, at least at that time, was negative and violent. But the Vortex is, I think, immortalized in that song. It's a brilliant song. I've always loved that song by the Jam. So that's it for the Vortex, and now I'm going to go around the corner to a very important Sex Pistols location, the 100 Club on Oxford Street. All right, now we're at 100 Oxford Street, which is just around the corner from the Vortex on Wardour Street. And it's also, as I've shown in a previous video, it's also right across the street from where Malcolm had his office, the Sex Pistols office, Glitter Best. And according to the website of the 100 Club, this is the oldest running independent music venue in the world. That's amazing. It was opened in 1942, and during the war, people like Benny Goodman used to play there. So it's been going since 1942. Isn't that amazing? The capacity is 350, and it's also an underground club, like a lot of clubs are. You go down some stairs. I wish I had gone to the club and just, picked any. They have a variety of acts, jazz, rock, and next time I'm in London, I want to just go there just to, I don't even care who I see, I just want to see the space. And apparently there's a lot of old pictures on the walls, including of the Sex Pistols. And so this is a very important venue for the Sex Pistols, and they had their news press conference here when they did the reunion tour in 1996. But yes, it's a very important venue for them. They played here more than any other venue in London. They played here a total of 10 times, which is quite a bit, because this is all during 1976. Their first show was March 30th, 1976, and apparently the person who books the 100 Club had seen them a few nights before at a venue in High Wycombe, and I guess he liked them, so he booked them for March 30th, 1976. So I'll show a couple pictures here. I think these photos are from that first gig. They're very early photos. But I can't verify it, but I think they're from that first gig on March 30th. And then moving on into May, they played here May 11th, May 18th, and May 25th. Those were all Tuesday nights, and I'll show a flyer here. Apparently, they were sort of had a Tuesday night residency during the month of May. Isn't that amazing? And then in June, they played here. This was probably also a Tuesday night. They played here June 15th, 1976, June 29th, and then also July 6th. And then going into the summer more, they played here on August 10th and August 31st. And their last show was the Punk Festival on September 20th. So, yes, a total of 10 times. The Sex Pistols, a lot of people think they were banned in the whole year of 1976. They played a lot in 1976. They were only banned at the end of the year after the Grundy interview in December. So this is a very important club. They really played here a lot, 10 times. And I'll show some more photos here. I love this photo here where Glenn is looking into the camera, and it's just a great photo of light in there. It's another one here. Looks like probably the same gig. He's wearing a white shirt with a little Peter Pan collar. I think this was not the first gig in March, but I think it was a bit later, either in May or June. They just look great. They played here a lot. And then, yes, so their last show was the Punk Festival. I never understood why they were banned from the after the Punk Festival, because the incident with the girl, I believe she lost an eye. That wasn't the night that the Sex Pistols played. That was apparently Sid throwing a glass on the 21st. That was the night that the Dam played. But maybe the 100 Club banned all punk bands after that incident with the glass being thrown at the girl. So, but their last show here was, as I said, the Punk Festival, September 20th, and I'll show another photo here. This is them on the night of the Punk Festival. They all look so fantastic. And I'll show another photo here. This is of my friend Michelle Brigandage, who I've interviewed, and these are a couple photos of fans outside. That's Michelle there in the between Susie and Steve Severin. She's wearing the leopard print jacket. And I just love the crowd because you can see some people are punky and some are not. I know a lot of people probably think everyone looked punk right away as soon as punk started going, but there were still a lot of people with mustaches and longish hair, even in 1977. So, but yes, unfortunately, their last show was September 20th, and I'll show the. I've always loved this flyer for the 100 Club Punk Festival. I love the way that they're up against the glass inside a telephone booth. So yeah, that was the lineup, and so this was their last show at the 100 Club, and you can see the Clash are on the bill, and Subway Sect, and I love the fact that they spell Susie. She's not spelling it yet with the XS. She's spelling it Suzie, and the Banshees. And here's a photo of them playing Susie and the Banshees on that night. I love this photo. You can see Marco Peroni in the front there, and Sid, of course, on drums. So that must have been, both nights must have been fantastic. But this night sounds like it was really, really great with that lineup. So yeah, so that was as I said, very important club for the Sex Pistols. They played there 10 different times in 1976, and unfortunately they didn't come back after the punk festival. So now we're going to go to a different Sex Pistols location. We're going to go to Carnaby Street, and we're going to look for the location of one of their best photos, I think. Thanks for joining me on another video on Why Not Go, and starting with a video of a famous photo of the Sex Pistols on Carnaby Street. So I'll let Joe just pan up and down Carnaby Street a little bit. It's changed a lot since the last time I was here, and last time I was here was like the late 90s, and I remember back then it was still kind of just, the cheap t-shirt shops and stuff, kind of very Hollywood Boulevard. But now it's all kind of high-end, I don't know, Abercrombie and Fitch and all that kind of stuff. It's very different. It's not really a rock and roll street anymore. The days of the 70s and the 60s are long gone. But I wanted to come here because this is one of my favorite photos of the band, taken by Ray Stevenson. And I don't know if you can see it there in the camera. I'll put a photo in the clip as well, a still of it. But I love this photo. I love the way Steve looks. He's wearing a hat. Johnny's pose is just brilliant. I just love it. And they look like they're goofing around coming down Carnaby Street. Who knows what they were doing that day. But I just love Johnny's pose. So I'm going to line up the shot here. And if you look at the photo, I'll put it in the clip. If you look at the photo, you can see that obviously the Carnaby Street sign has changed, and the businesses have changed. But you can see the corner there, and I'll just zoom in. So they would be standing right about. I'm going to walk over.
Where the curb used to be.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, yeah. It was always a walking street, but maybe there was a curb there. I don't know. But Johnny would have been standing right about here, right in front of this this sign here that says Flint Eye, I think. And so he would have been standing right about here, and the rest of them would have been to his right, walking down Carnaby Street. So it's a very... All right, Joe is standing right about where Johnny was standing. Are you going to do the Johnny look? That's pretty good. Yeah. I think you have to like bend down a little bit. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
I need a little Ian Hunter.
Yeah.
Got the Gene Simmons here.
So Johnny was right about where Joe is, and the rest of them would have been to his right, walking down the street. Very famous Ray Stevenson photo that I just always loved. They looked like they were having a good time that day. And so I just wanted to come to Carnaby Street, see what it was like. And when I came here, I thought I got to find out where that famous photo was. And you can see the kind of the lip on the structure there in the corner is the same. It's just a different color. All right, another Sex Pistol location on Carnaby Street. This one on Carnaby Street. So thanks for joining me. I just love looking at all their old haunts. Till the next time. And one more pan of the famous photo. They would have been standing right where that couple is.
Men should get where he is.
Okay.
And come on, do a crazy look. Yeah. I'll do a picture too after this.
I don't know what.
So you can clip this video.
I don't know what he was doing. It's like.
Yeah, do that face. Yeah, look ahead.
I can't remember.
It's the outtakes. And act like you're walking while you're doing it. Yeah, like that.
So next time you're in London, come to Carnaby Street like we did. We're just outside the Shakespeare's Head pub. And do your own Johnny Rotten pose from this great photo. It's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun anyway. Well, thanks again for watching. Until the next time, I'll be seeing you.